How's it going, everybody? I'm Domovex, comicreleases.com, assistant editor and manager of Near Mint Condition. And today I have a full stack with me to promote what is going to be an awesome Kickstarter. And joining alongside me down below is none other than Channel Minty Mr. Greathouse. Is joining me, I guess, for the co whatever interview.
I'm a big fan of Scott and a huge fan of 12 gauge. So I'm so happy to be here. I feel like, Scott will never get enough praise, but I can honestly say it is criminal how underrated how unknown 12 gauge is. So I am here to hype this up more than anything.
All right. Yeah, it's all this time. I just needed a hype man. Who knew?
But no, we have none other than Comic Book Collected Edition legend Scott Dunbier joining us today. Congratulations on getting Act 4 set up. I know that this was super huge for you, so big congrats to you on your next venture and journey.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Of course. And join alongside is Keven Gardner. Keven, if you may, tell us a little about 12 Gauge Comics for those who might not know about the publishing company.
Yeah, and 12 Gauge, this is our 20th year, which is horrifying to think that that's old. Yeah, I mean, it's not a sexy name. I'm kind of consider myself a boutique publisher and more of a producer than actual publishing. I do, a lot of our books mostly through Image Comics, a handful through Dark Horse, and then some that we've published on our own. And then over the last few years, we've done, this is our 4th Kickstarter. So, it's an important one. I got started doing this because I was friends with a bunch of artists. I had worked for a little while at Valiant in the mid 90s, and I owned a comic book shop before that, and had gotten to know the guys at Gaijin Studios, and that's Adam Hughes, Brian Stelfreeze, Dave Johnson, Jason Pearson, Cully Hamner, Tony Harris. I mean, it was just, stacked group of guys that were about an hour and a half from my comics shop. And so I'd bring them in to do signings, and then went to work at Valiant. And then I started to see the business, the publishing side, and started hounding those guys like, hey, let me help you do books. And they're all like, no. And but years later, after trying really hard, I came up with the idea for this anthology. It was called The Ride, and it was built around a 1968 Camaro. And it was crime and action, supernatural, anything like that could happen around in the book, and you could tell your story. The car just needed to be a part of the storyline, and that's how I got the first book published. Cully Hamner and Brian Stelfreeze drew the first issue. George's Gene Dexter Vines, and then Jason closed it. And honestly, and I told Jason this a few years later, but one of the main reasons I started the company was to get him to do more body bags. Nice. Because, he had done, it was such an amazing story. And for whatever had happened, he didn't finish the sequel that was announced, around 1998, 99. And he had just abandoned it. I'm like, dude, we can still do this. So he moved across the country and I live in Birmingham, Alabama. He moved here so that he could come into my office every day, and we set a drawing table up, and we could get pages going. So he was here for a few years. We got 2 new books, and so it was a huge joy. There's one of those trades, and and so so I make a handful of books every year, and I try to do quality stuff, and instead of throwing everything against the wall and see what sticks, we try to do curate things and work with creators that need somebody to help them get the the ball across the finish line or whatever. And so after Jason passed, and Scott and I think we'd met before. We weren't friends or anything, but we knew of each other, or at least I knew of him. But he reached out through Joe Phillips, who was also a Gaijin Studios guy, and Joe hooked us up, and he's like, I want to do an artist edition. And I'm like, dude, I've been wanting to do this forever, and just never could get Jason to, he didn't think anybody would want it, so I'm glad to prove him wrong. Hopefully that will happen, because you never won an argument with Jay. So I'll be able to, point up and say, hey, I told you. But yeah, it worked out great. He had every single page of his Body Bags artwork. He'd never sold it. So I told Scott, like, the only problem you're going to have is finding enough storage space to scan all these pages and keep them on a hard drive somewhere. So, but that process is about done. And man, it's awesome. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Oh, that's an amazing long, seems like super long tenure. Also, just to be able for you to get here, and you're working with all those big names, right? Like Adam Hughes, Brian Stelfreeze, like these aren't, small name guys. I mean, like I've read plenty of comics with either their covers or they've got their, interiors on them, and now to be able to do something to this sort where we're focusing primarily on the artist. It's all process. It's all the pages that you could want if you're into that stuff. I mean, that's a pretty cool thing to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and if I can add too, because out of the I don't know about Scott's relationship. I knew Pearson off and on. I only got to chat with him a couple times about art. But the crazy thing is, especially with Body Bags, if you look at the art, it's like, oh man, this is 90s action. Like you expect a certain thing. Then you start to read it and you realize like how many different levels and like just how deep it goes. Because like little things, just even like the main character Mac is more based off of the American comic book design, Western superhero, big and bulky, where Panda is more based off of Japan manga, bigger eyes, sleek. And then Pops, who, not to speak ill of the dead, but I will never forgive Jason for killing Pops to this day, but it's more based off of European design. And like just that level of thought where it's like no one goes into that, like, let me pull out different influences just so you can tell from an instant what these characters look like.
Yeah, that's good eye for that, that you caught all that.
There you go. If I may also ask, how did you and Scott sort of get together and say like, hey, let's push all this out. Let's print out these books. How did you and Scott meet? I guess I should.
Yeah, I mean, it was Joe Phillips did the
Right.
intro about this project, and Scott and I got on the phone, and this was a few months, a month or two after Jason had passed, and so the first big hurdle was to get the art, and that was all tied up in his mom getting his estate settled because the horrible, awful people that ran that apartment complex, who, I just can't comprehend how you can be so rude to people. But anyway, they were awful to deal with. It took us 6 months to get access to his place. And, the whole time it was just like terrified that, somebody would break in or whatever, but I knew it was there. Like after they were required by law to let us, we found out from an attorney, if when somebody passed away, you're allowed to go in and look for a will and then get some, like personal articles for a burial or whatever. So I did get to go in and I saw there was like a couple of boxes of, the pages. So I knew they were there, but I couldn't walk out with them. So that was really stressful. I was a lot of nights I was like, man, we can just go in and crack through a window and walk out with that big box. So anyway, we finally met last year at Baltimore. I flew up to Baltimore with all these this gigantic backpack of pages.
And I was at the Baltimore Comic Con, and sometimes I'll bring my scanner to a show, but I specifically brought it to this show so I could scan these pages, and I didn't finish because there were just so many. So I took some home and finished them here.
Yeah. And I was actually not upset about that because I had backache from toting that. I went online and I researched like the largest backpack that you could buy to fit in an overhead storage. And when it came in, it's like, okay, it's just a backpack. And then when you load, I like 2 giant FedEx boxes full of pages, and then some other stuff. And it was also like, man, I feel like I'm, this is a lot of money to have on my back. But we got it. That's how it started. And then right in the middle of kind of working on it, Scott gave me a call. He's like, "Hey, just want to let you know I'm starting my own, company." So, which ended up being great because we were able to do everything we wanted to do. Like this, it would just sort of all kind of came together. It did delay, I think, just the logistics of getting everything ready while you're launching a new company. And but it's really cool too that this is the first official Act 4 book. So that's kind of nice little piece of history. Hopefully that we get this thing funded. Last I looked before we came on, I think we were a little over 50% of our funding goal. So I think we're on the right track. It's a hell of a printing bill, I'll tell you that much. Like this is a lot of pages and big, bulky. What a book to do. But yeah, really, really excited about the way it's headed so far.
How long did you guys go ahead, Josh?
I was about to say, if I can interject, because we all original art is priceless, and don't get me wrong, and we all love to over romanticize it, but it's like, yeah, once you get stacks of paper upon paper upon paper, those things weigh a ton, they're fragile, and oh my gosh, if you want to have one of the best and worst times, ever go to Bill Sienkiewicz's table. That man should not be allowed to handle his own original art. There's coffee stains everywhere. He treats those with no respect. So there's nothing better. Like I said, that's one reason I love the artist editions. You get them all in a nice package. They're easy to read, and it's the best of the best. And I have seen originals compared to the books. They're the big difference is the books are a lot more sturdy. So yeah, it's Keven. I cannot imagine you dragging all those pages to a con.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I had to change flights in Atlanta. You couldn't get a direct to Baltimore for some reason. So it was a funny. The whole thing was just kind of funny. But if you like to see stained and pages and whatnot, these are the funny And Jason just had. There was the original 96 pages from the 4-issue Father's Day. Those were in a box, labeled and taped up, and I bet that box hadn't been opened. He had showed some to me, I think around 2005 or 6 when he moved here. And then all the new stuff were just laying around the apartment. So, and Jason smoked a lot, insane. And so the ones that were out on top or put in at angles, they're completely a dark yellow, color. Then the one right under it will have just a little bit of a line of yellow. So definitely different looking than a lot of the original art that has been in an artist edition. You don't need to adjust your monitor. Those pages are definitely yellow. So.
Yeah, it's funny because different artists have different ways of doing things. What Keven was talking about with Jason. If you look at Brian Boland's original art, it's pristine. It's pure white. There's barely, if you can find any correction fluid, it's a rarity. And then other guys, like you mentioned, Bill Sienkiewicz's. I know one guy who I'm not going to mention his name. He had a cat that used to crawl all over his pages, and but they were his pages. So, yeah. But although one time his cat had an accident on some of the art.
No, but, can't get those pages stained.
But I've never had any of those in an artist edition. But everybody has their own thing, and I used to be an art dealer, so for me, it's I have great respect for original art, but I also have, I guess an understanding that it was made to be reproduced and it's commercial art. And so, I have great respect for it, but I don't have, I guess, the reverence that some people have. Maybe not reverence is the right word because I love original art, but I also, I'm very comfortable around it.
Mm-hmm. So, Scott, if you don't mind me asking, because you've scanned many pages, had to clean up probably you've done everything from full painted covers to black and white to pencils. Is it the kind of thing where it's with your process, I'm assuming you like scan at a certain DPI, like that's all standard. But then is it the kind of thing where it's like, okay, I have to spend like the next couple of days like testing on the best way to clean something up? Like, is it different? Do you have notes for like different artists? Like, because you were saying like with Brian Boland, everything's pretty clean. So that's got to be a simpler process than with another artist.
Yeah, and it also depends on whether, I mean, sometimes I get scans from people rather than scanning it myself. I always prefer to scan the art myself so I can look at it and make color corrections as I go. And when I say color corrections, it's a minor process. I mean, sometimes a page will scan dark or light or whatever. And so, I just go into Photoshop and I make adjustments in various settings.
Okay.
But,
Did it take go ahead.
I was just going to say, and with art that comes from outside sources, I sort of have to just make a guess, go for it and do the best I can to try to make it what I think it would look like. And, sometimes that involves lightening or darkening, but, I always try to get the integrity of the art.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Dom, what were you saying?
Oh, no, I was just going to ask, I guess the both of you, like, how long did it take to process through, scan through, and get all of what we will be talking about with these artist editions? How long did it take to get Jason Pearson's art, like, all in the way that you both wanted it?
It's actually still a process, to some extent. I mean, most of it is done. The scanning, of course, is all done, and the color corrections and straightening are done. But there's some minor adjustments that still need to be made.
Yeah, for me, like, Scott did all the really hard stuff. I just spent a couple of nights down here in the cave, and I put, like, when I went and got everything, like when cleaned out his apartment and stuff, and I bought these giant Tupperware containers and just filled them up with his pages, and then had to separate body bags from other stuff, and then try to get, like I said, the original 96 were all in order. Everything else was a little sketchy, and then there was just so much process stuff. Like, I was shocked at how many, like, just character designs and doodles, and oh my God, I mean, we didn't scan any, but like the note cards that he had, I don't even know where to start. Like, I called Brian. I was sort of feeling overwhelmed, and he's like, he's like, I'll come help you do that at some point, because, like, I can probably piece together, because he has all these stories written, but they're like on note cards and they're not numbered, and they were just like in a pile, and getting all that stuff and whatever. But yeah, as far as the artwork goes, figuring out, I think I ended up sending Scott a couple of photocopies that I thought were originals of like some colored character designs that he just had printed out, but all the character designs, all that kind of stuff, just what we'd actually want in the book. Like, that's why we ended up with this Artist Edition Plus, is to try to the stuff that's not directly sequential pages, be able to showcase some of that. And we can talk more of that when we get into it. But yeah, it was probably a week off and on, a few hours every night, getting it ready to put in the giant backpack and head to Baltimore Comic-Con.
Because I remember talking to Selfreeze about that too, because he told me, like, man, Pearson would have like a finished story. He would do thumbnails, which were like completely tight. Because I remember Brian saying, it's like, he should have sent them off to Carl Stories, had someone letter them. We could have had a whole issue. And the good and the bad thing with Pearson was he was a perfectionist. Like, everything had to be perfect. And he was his own worst critic, because it's like, yeah, because I've seen some stuff where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like, holy, this is amazing. It's also kind of weird talking about body bags and not trying to curse for YouTube. But yeah, I heard about the note card thing too, where it's like he would have these different stories, like, and he liked it apparently because he could move around. Like, well, what if I put the scene here? What if I put it here?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And I don't know. I don't think we have any. Scott, I don't think you've sent me the scans yet of some of the layouts that in that last batch of stuff. But yeah, his layouts, super, super tight. He literally certainly could have gone to a really good inker to finisher, more than ink, but they were better than most people, pencils. And then, then he would, go from there. But yeah, man, like as far as the story stuff, I think he probably had a couple more volumes of Body Bags plotted out in his head. He was planning on doing 5 volumes. His Unfulfilled Kickstarter, the Don't Die Before I Kill You, or Don't Die Until I Kill You. That he wrote the entire thing before he started his Kickstarter. I was sort of helping him out with, just the logistics of it. And I'm like, dude, I'm not helping you until you write the story. Do that first. And he did. And he wrote it and got the thing funded and started like doing the first couple of doodles. And then he disappeared on me for a few weeks, which was totally normal. And then he comes back and he's like, I rewrote the whole thing. I'm like, oh my God, dude. Like, why are you doing this? And it's really, really good. You don't need to rewrite it. Not only did he rewrite it, he doubled it in size. So, went from, it was supposed to be, about, I think 80 to 90 pages or something. And it was just this gigantic thing. And, but yeah, he struggled with the writing and trying to make it perfect. And I'm like, it's so good. You don't need to worry about it. But that was the difference between, I guess where you step into that level of really, really special. And I think he felt he had painted himself in a corner with Body Bags. And then the story that he abandoned, he ended up, like, when we started doing these books, he didn't have the right to do them. It was tied up with Dark Horse. And it was not long before he passed away that he told me that he'd gotten the rights back. But I was like, well, let's jump in and, you can't jump in and do that story. I wish we could, right? I didn't realize it was all the scripts are completely written, 6 issues, 24 pages each. And the whole thing is, in layouts, 33 pages of either pencil or inked, the first issue, and then like a handful in the next. But the whole thing is storyboarded out, and he had gotten sick and, just like did not want to do it anymore. And, whatever, I don't know. The guy had a lot of stories in him. That's for sure.
I was gonna say the other problem though is because back in the 90s when he did the first Body Bags, his pancreas exploded and he didn't know about it. So he had to go to the hospital for a long time. So yeah, I can imagine like history repeating itself. I mean, that would scare anyone. Like,
yeah, he always said that the Body Bags almost killed him. He had this like tumor, and he was always super skinny, and apparently it was slowly killing him. And so they went in for the surgery, and I think they thought it was like a size of maybe a golf ball or tennis ball, and it was like a grapefruit. So he almost died, literally. In there. And so when he did, he told me, like, this was kind of the conversations we were having. He's like, I just didn't have the desire to do it anymore. Like he like it's something, like there was a mental thing there with this surgery, almost dying, and he just couldn't go back to that story for whatever reason. And he got the itch back when he did the the 3 the hard way. He did 20 some odd pages of that story, and then reprinted some of the short stories, and then went into One Shot, which was a 44 pager or whatever. So and I will say, like, just talking to the backers of his 2015 campaign, most people, they you can only be so patient, right? There were a handful of people that were really, really upset, and I get it. You spend $30 or $50 or $100 and you don't get your thing that you wanted. A handful of folks came out and said, there were comments like, oh, he just scammed us. He was never intending to do this. It's been all these years. I can promise you he was working on it. It was in his own way. And he got down in the weeds and it just wasn't meant to be. And there were obviously, I'm not going to get, he had some mental issues, like he suffered from depression and other things. And, that's all very public. But it was never an intent. I think, for me, knowing him the way I know him and when we talk about it all the time, it was just the he had a mental block. He would work on it and he would get stuck and he would abandon it and he'd start working on something else. And he didn't put out a lot of anything, the last few years. It wasn't just body bags. He would kick some covers out, trying to pay some bills. But his creativity had gotten really stifled the last few years of his life, and certainly wasn't his intent. I mean, like I said, he had really big plans. The Vicious storyline, I know, he had it plotted out completely, and 3 more volumes after that he had loosely. I don't know the story. I kind of, he told me parts of it, but at least he did leave this great treasure trove behind of all these pages. So like we didn't have to go search for anything or missing pages. I mean, it's all here. So if you're a fan, you can literally sit down and read, the first 4 issues in this artist edition, because they're hand lettered. So that's really cool, that we have that opportunity. Also,
I kind of realized we've all been like, we all know body bags, but the quick elevator pitch, I would say it's it's a father it's like basically he's the best at what he does, and what he does is bring in bodies. Like, he's a mercenary, but his estranged daughter wants to become a mercenary as well. And he's like, look, I am not a father figure. I'm a horrible human being. And that's Father's Day. And it's a brutal, touching. It's like, it is full of blood, guts, and tears. And it is a very brutal story, not just in the violence, but especially at the end. I do not want to spoil it, but man, there's that moment, like that 1-page turn where you're like, I don't know if I want to turn this page or not.
Yeah. It was, a commentary on the times, and the bad guys becoming good guys was sort of a thing, where the Punisher was a star of his thing, and Venom was turning into a good guy. So it was sort of a, Jason wanted to create a character that was so bad he shouldn't be redeemable. But Panda comes into his life, his daughter, and he rejects her completely, and she's just trying to, do what her dad does so that he'll keep her around, there's a lot more, on its face, it's just a cool ass action story. But if you get into those characters and you see there's a lot of Jay in both of those characters too, so it's the heart is what comes back around. I always talk about with movies, there's certain directors that make the most amazing, the special effects are great. The characters, you want to see these movies, but there's not a lot of soul there, versus somebody who, uses the special effects as sort of window dressing to get you into the story, and I think Jason realized that, he talked about the cybernetics and all that kind of stuff, that's just window dressing to get you the cool factor, but it's really just a story about a daughter trying to get her father to to love her, and that's what brings people back.
Well, especially Hit the Switch. I mean, that's an after school special with these violent characters, but it's done so well.
Yeah,
for sure. Just want to get to a couple of quick comments with our live crew here, and then we can move on to talking about the artist editions. We got our friend Big Stu in Orlando, still at school, who'll watch later. Hope we get around to that. But yes, hopefully you're getting a complete body bags and a deluxe edition hardcover. Thank you for the thoughts and prayers as well for the fam. And yes, we could talk about that later, but may perhaps in issue 6 of Ziglar's. And Jeremy's art says, I'm very fortunate to have met him and Josh back in the Gaijin studio days. Jason was always a cool guy, and Josh continues to be a kind heart artist. Glad to be a backer of the artist editions.
Thank you.
Jeremy, if you rewatch this when Kevin's talking, my face lights up because I saw your comment. I'm so happy to see you, man.
But yes, so yeah, for all of those, I guess, moving on along here, we do have, this is the image for the artist editions, or the artist edition, I should say, of body bags. We do have this along with an artist edition plus, If I may ask you to, what's sort of the difference between the artist edition, the artist edition plus, and the differences between there?
Well, an artist edition features all the original art at same size, scanned in color, so you can actually see all the little bits that make original art unique. You can see blue pencils, you can see correction fluid, you can see coffee stains, you can see whatever's on the actual art. None of it is cleaned up. So it is the closest you can get to actually physically being in the presence of original art. And so in this case, it's all Jason Pearson. And so the book will be at least 200 pages, maybe a little bit more. And Artist Edition Plus is sort of the same thing, only they're shrunk down. It's an extra. We didn't have room to put everything in the Artist Edition, so this is a way to get more art out there. And then the last book is a sketchbook that collects his commissions and various drawings.
Here we go. This is the Locked and Loaded, a Jason Pearson sketchbook, which does look, yeah, that's all incredibly cool. So for those wondering out there, this is what we do. We do have the difference between those, as well as a sketchbook. Let's go ahead and do an overview, quick overview of some of the scans inside for the original pages. This is page 19 of Father's Day, or should I say the title name Father's Day, issue 2 of Body Bags, all presented in throughout there. Jeremy's art says, "Thank you, Keven," and thank you as well of the king of artist editions, Mr. Scott, for bringing this project to life. And yeah, glad to see. There you go, Josh. He's glad to see you as well. And no, thank you for joining us in the stream. We're glad to have you.
I have to say, man, one, it makes I'm so happy to see that Black Noir pages, because that's such a fun bit of history. 2, I've only seen these in color. And I've read this book many a time. Like, I haven't bugged Keven enough about reprinting this because my book's falling apart. So I need this artist edition because I've been going through these too much. And man, seeing these just rich blacks is so good.
Yeah, it definitely changes, your perspective on what the Gaijin guys always did a really good job. They use black as a color, right? I mean, most people don't think of black as a color, but they got it completely. That studio understood.
Especially, man, because I know like a lot of good portion of NMC, big fans of the Big Two. I cannot stress enough, like, just look up Gaijin's studio. That is such a rich history. Some amazing talent came through.
The page.
I did not believe. I was like, there's no way we're showing that page.
Yeah, that one that caused quite an uproar. I think in the Dark Horse offices, as well as among fans or consumers. Yeah.
Yeah, we have that one over there.
What was the font, like the actual logo of the Father's Day? Was that a off type or was that paint?
Yeah, that I think I'm trying to remember. That was glued on, right, Scott? Father's Day?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Because that's the other thing in this digital age. Like nowadays, even if someone's working traditional, that's just going to be blacked out. Like no one's going to take the time to glue that. So in some way, yeah, it's like, man, we're missing a lot with this new age.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have Photoshop now. I mean,
yeah.
it was not around back then. So, I mean, most pages aren't even lettered on the boards anymore.
Mm-mm.
See if I can get through. Here is the next one. Yeah, man. Every single time, like I see one of these original pages, like I don't unfortunately have enough room in my household to like hold these, but every single time, like I look up one of them, it's like whether it's with the coffee stains, with the water, without it, whatever it might be. I'm always just sort of amazed that, man, like this is what, these pages looked like right before, they got rendered out, maybe with some inks or colors, splashed onto it. But yeah, I'm always astonished by seeing, and this is what, if the finished pencils or whatever it might be, they look like. I think you guys did a really wonderful job with not only bringing this rendition to life, but all of the restructuring and whatnot.
I'm also excited because, man, like I said, I've been a fan of Pearson's art way before I knew him, and it's the kind of thing it's hard to find. Like I said, I've never seen these pages in black and white, and I feel like historically Pearson was always known as a penciler, but man, he could sling a mean brush.
I think his penciling is great, but I think his real talent is in his inking. I mean, it brings kinetic energy to the art. I mean, look at that. I mean, the inking on this is as good as anybody.
Well, and the other thing is like the rendering of shoes and jeans, because like he spent Mac has Converse shoes, which it's like a lot. I don't know. Most artists just draw generic, like shoe number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't Jason.
No.
Details on it there. Let's see if I can send in. But yeah, I'm just looking at this and like, man, like some of the details in the render works between the fingers, the hands, choice of outfit as well. Typically, sometimes you have some creators who might just slap on a regular shirt, like something like I'm wearing. But I mean, just the I guess the process and thinking through like, hey, these shoes are going to be different from what other people wear. These shorts are going to be different from what other people wear. I think it's a great testament to Jason.
Another thing about this particular page, the storytelling is really phenomenal. I mean, you look at the first shot, which is just a straight ahead, then you have the close up, then you have that down shot, that's just, and then the close up at the end. It's just beautiful storytelling, very innovative, just great storytelling.
Well, especially, that down shot, like it's so easy to ignore background, but that background tells you everything you need to know about these characters. Like, hey, they don't live on the best side of town. They live in an industrial side. Like, you can see the bricks. It is clearly a mess. Like, it's single guys clearly living here. This isn't a great home for a teenage girl.
Sure. And also we want to thank our super producer, Mr. James Abel, for sharing the Kickstarter along with us. So you can go ahead and check it out there as well for everyone who's watching it. And also it will be in the description of the video that you are watching. So if you are watching us live or if you are watching a rerun at some point later, you will be able to back up the campaign through this link. And once again, we want to thank James Abel for this, and 3 Cities saying, I was a fan of the series. Well, hope you get to pick up one of these Kickstarter artist editions. We really appreciate it.
I know, like, Omar often is like, I don't want to cause FOMO. I don't want to cause FOMO. I want to cause FOMO because I guarantee you someone's going to watch this in the future and be like, I wish I had the opportunity for this. Like, this is a book. 5 years from now, everyone's going to be like, why didn't I pull the trigger? I cannot wait to pull the trigger on this.
Yeah, it is.
We cannot wait also.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, just the be able to hold the thing in my hands and say, it's here. And, the presentation is great. Like I have a stack of artist editions, and it's at the point now where I'm like, I need to figure out where the hell I'm going to put them. But just to sit down and say, get to look through all this, and just, there's so much, greatness on these pages. I really don't know any other way to say it. And also you get to see the process of, how he drew back in 1996 versus, the stuff he was doing where he was, he wasn't inking everything. He was doing a lot of that on the computer. So you see the evolution of his process. But yeah, like if we just did Father's Day, the 96 pages, like that book alone would be worth the price, you know.
Mhm.
And we've got all this extra stuff, and but man, yeah, and it's funny too. Like if you look at Jay's work before Body Bags, like you could see this coming, maybe, but I mean, it was just he murdered this book. I mean, like
Mhm.
this was that step up where, you know, where did Michael Jordan become Michael Jordan? Like nobody out of high school, he wasn't that guy, and he wasn't in college long. You could see it there, and then
Mhm.
he got an NBA and took over and just dominated. And I felt like that's sort of, you know, the sports analogy for Jason with Body Bags, because he had, you know, done great stuff, but when he did this book, his book that meant so much to him, it just went to a totally different level. And
As
you know,
a, yeah.
it just, you know, it's awesome.
As a basketball fan and as a sports fan in general, I appreciate that that analogy. Just sort of like, hey, where was, you know, this creator, like right before they got up to, wow, like this is who they are. They've established themselves now. I think that's pretty cool just to see him, you know, overall like grow in the process, learn to grow as a creator, figure out different storytelling techniques between the panels. I think it's a phenomenal job of that you've guys done. I got a quick question for Scott here in the chat. I have asked you about this before, but have any museums ever reached out to you about collecting your previous projects in their archives?
There have been some. Columbia University has a comic book archive run by Karen Green, and they have most of the artist editions in their collection. There are other places um, that libraries and other institutions that also have a number of artist editions. But aside from Columbia, I haven't worked personally with any of them.
Also, a fun fact about the Columbia or the Billy Irish Museum: anyone can request to see their catalog, and they have the full issue of Bone, the cow race. So what was fun for me was I got to borrow the artist edition when I was there, and actually hold the original Jeff Smith pages. And like I said, Scott's giving you this in a better package, and you do not have to spend gas or travel. So I cannot thank him enough.
Well, I mean, there are some. I mean, Billy Ireland is a fantastic institution. You know, they have an amazing collection of. Besides Jeff Smith, they have a lot of Milton Caniff. They have. There was a gentleman named Bill Blackbeard who was a historian who gave his archives to them. I mean, they have an amazing collection. Actually, the Library of Congress has a great collection too. They actually have the original art for Amazing Fantasy 15, which is the first appearance of Spider-Man. And not only the Spider-Man story, but they have everything else from that issue except for the cover. They have the backup stories by Steve Ditko, Steve Ditko also drew those. So there are a lot of places. Syracuse University has a collection. There are a bunch of different places that aren't really known. University of Kansas in Lawrence has an amazing collection, not of comic book art, but of the Esquire archives. So they have a lot of amazing pinup paintings by Varga and others.
Now, wait a minute. I want to see if I'm going to test James on this. Can you find the link for the Billy Ireland to tell people about their back catalog and how to check out original art? Good luck, James. Also, one thing I wanted to note: the cool thing is, like, Father's Day, it's all the same style. But the other crazy thing with Pearson is he was never satisfied. So, like, each different story, you see him trying things in a different way, rendering different style, even to like a point of like deadline. Because I do know, I was talking to Brian about this because Brian used to be a really good studio mate of his. He was saying like Pearson came to him and he's like, you know, I think I need to start going cartoonier because I want to do things that the human body can't do, but cartoons can do.
How do you spell Billy's last name?
It's Ireland, like
The country.
yeah.
Jamie, any
You know,
partner?
it's interesting when you talk about never being satisfied. It's funny. The only artists I really have ever met who are satisfied with their work are artists who aren't that great. You know, if an artist is really happy with their work, you know, that sort of tells me something. There are exceptions. Frank Frazetta thought a lot of his stuff, and you know what? I can't argue with Frank Frazetta. But you know, I mean, Jason took it to the extreme, you know, but an artist should never really be completely satisfied with their work. I mean, I'm not saying they should want to throw everything in the trash, but an artist who grows is an artist who looks at their work and they can say, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. That looks really good. I don't like that one figure or something like that. You know, there's something, or I could have told that story a little bit better, pasted a little bit differently. You know, those are the artists that are constantly evolving, that are improving. You know, those are the guys that I have the most respect for.
And like you said, because it could even sometimes it's like rendering, but especially with comics, it's like, how can I convey this idea in a clearer way in these, like, in fewer panels, or maybe I use more panels and maybe different angle, different, yeah.
Yeah, to sort of add to what Josh is saying, it's like, you know, over the years, we've had so many different creators tell their stories in different ways, right? Like art from the 60s and 70s is going to look a lot different from the 1990s and 2000s, but you still get to learn about not only how the industry is evolving, but also how artists are evolving along with the industry. And I think that artist editions, and especially getting to see this, it's like, you know, I think if you compare Jason's work to, say, you know, maybe the 2000s instead of the 1990s, you get to see just sort of a difference between, like, okay, so this creator was doing this while others may have been doing this, but this is how they're conveying their ideas.
Well, especially because, like, unfortunately, Body Bags came out like right after the crash, but like he, you know, the common in the 90s was pinups, like big flashy pages and a lot of headshots. You know, Pearson, I mean, just this page alone, like there's more background work than figure work, and it tells the story. Also, the man conveys a knife being thrown midair using a static image in black and white. Like, that is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I am very, like, I really want to bug Dom to zoom in on that, even though I think I might break the stream, because I need this book. I need you all to pay for this book. So, yeah, go up, go up. Yeah, I mean, look at that. Look how many lines it takes to convey an idea that's
In full black and white.
Oh, Dom, the fact that you can zoom in, this is a different stream altogether.
Well, I was just going to say we should be zooming in on all the pages from now on.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Should be. But yeah, this is, yeah, absolutely incredible. I mean, like Josh was saying, like how he was able to portray like that with the colors that, you know, obviously you're limited to, because, you know, you're not drawing in full color, and being able to render this. I mean, it's fantastic. I can't say.
Can you go back down a little bit to the large panel on the bottom?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, right there. Notice that word, that special effects. I mean, that's hand drawn. Mm-hmm. You know, that's not Photoshop. That's hand drawn.
Yeah, I mean, that's our. Go ahead.
Just the store sign, like you have the ottoman on the side with the front. You didn't need to do that. I don't know what the store's called. I know it ends with TA. Like,
yeah. Yep, mannequins, you know, in the store. I mean, just even the brick, like, you know, like it could have been so easy just to draw them, but no, it's like every little brick is.
Every brick is so different, and that's something I'm like, wow, like that's incredible.
Because he didn't color it, but he oversaw the colors on the original, like on all of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wouldn't let go out without.
Yeah, he was very much involved.
I gotta say too, just even like, you know, you guys mentioned the storefronts. I love how they're all different fonts as well. Like just like how all stores are. Like if I'm driving by like a city or looking at different areas, right? Like it's not just, hey, this all the stores have the same font. No, like every single store has their own different logo or different sign at the front. I'm like, he made time to have them all uniquely different in one part of this comic, which is insane.
Because I know, what was it called? So this is a little bit of a weird story. He was hanging out at my place with a couple friends. We were playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3. The Spider-Man stage comes on, but it has like bugs or something, extermination, like in the background. And Pearson all of a sudden like just jumps up and he's like, "Holy shit, that's mine!" And we're like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I was dating that girl. That was the nickname for her kid, and I made that in a cover. I didn't know they put that in the background of this video game." Like,
Wow.
and it's random stuff like that that's like gets easily lost in time.
Interesting that you guys are playing Marvel versus Capcom. I love that you threw that in there, just sort of dating yourself.
Also, zoom in on the Mac and Pops there. Here's the other fun thing: like he's throwing so much detail at you, and then it's like he does this very simplistic page, but it hits so much harder. Because like, and man, because like yeah, that pose of Panda lives rent free in my head because that's one of the things I always see when I think of Panda.
Here, scroll to the top. Just great.
Also, it looks like he did Father's Day, that Frazetta, that F, and yeah, that F looks like Frazetta's.
It kind of does.
Oh man. The fact too that he took the time to give her like a cheerleader outfit and the P being that like fuzzy cheerleader. I mean, that took a lot of unnecessary time.
Oh yeah, and then she's got her cheerleader little pom poms on her shoes. You know, JB and J, he was drawing Harley Quinn covers a few years back, and they had added the pom poms to her shoes. And you want to talk about losing his mind? He was drawing the cover, and he told the editor, he's like, "I'm not drawing the pom poms. You guys stole that from me. I'm not doing it. Whoever redid this design, those are my pom poms." And and he didn't. He refused to draw them on the cover. And the editor's like, "I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got to put the pom poms on." He's like, "That's your problem. I'm not drawing them because you guys ripped me off. You stole it from me." I guess that was his last Harley Quinn cover. But he's like, he said, "Am I wrong?" And I'm like, "Jay, you're not wrong to not want to draw them. It's your, like, I don't know that they stole the idea from Panda. It's a thing that's around, but I get where you're coming from." He's like, "I just can't do it." He's like, I'd just rather not work for, this editor again than draw these pom-poms." Like, that's JB and J, man.
For sure. And we did find, or James did find, I should say, the
Go James.
Art database tutorial. Man, I have no idea how he does it, but the mention of just like him, like you say, "Hey, like go find this thing," he'll find it in like 1-2 minutes, like tops.
I guarantee.
Wait a minute. Where's Jimmy Hoffa buried?
I was about to say, because I guarantee you it's like, "Hey, James, I need 12 gauge 4th ax websites up." Because you probably will have it up before I'm done talking.
Exactly. Yeah, he's the quickest man on the internet, but that is why we all love him as the super producer. I think that's it for sort of the original pages. If you know what, I need to zoom in on this.
Yeah, you do.
I feel like I can't leave this part of the interview without. I mean, gosh,
especially like everyone did it after Frank Miller's Sin City. Everyone did the bandages, but then he not only did that, but he made it his own. Like that's the impressive fact.
Right. Okay.
Kevin's looking for.
I
want to see what there's a line up here, and I meant to look at this a while back, where the original line they covered it up because it says Jurassic Park. I think that was why they made him take it out. Let's see. See if you can you scroll up a little bit? Yeah, so step aside Jurassic Park and change it to, let's see. What the hell?
Make your ass useful dino. Wow.
Yeah. So there you go. So that was I don't know if we have the original word balloon with that one. So some of these fell off like during the process of transportation and scanning. There was a handful that like Scott had scanned like on their own. But
James says back to Scott, Jimmy Hoffa is probably buried in an unmarked grave in Michigan.
I still think it's in the concrete in the Meadowlands.
See, and that's actually a good point, Kevin. Though that's a fun thing about these, where it's like, yeah, I didn't know. I never would have guessed the whole, especially Jurassic Park. That's such a weird thing for editorial to be like, we don't want to cross that line.
Well, yeah, they probably had just picked up the license to Jurassic Park comics, or were trying to get them. I think Topps ended up getting those. Actually, am I totally dreaming that? Or
no, you're right. You're right about that.
So they were probably trying to get the license to Jurassic Park, and somebody said, "Oh wait, no, we can't put Jurassic Park in this book." And
it's certainly not. It's certainly not a legal matter, but yeah, it could be just a PR problem.
Yeah, this book. I mean, that first issue, according to multiple people that I've talked to that were at Dark Horse at the time, like they were threatening to quit. The editors were threatening to quit because of that, page 5. And
I get a hard time about it too.
Yeah, it's shocking. It's still shocking to today. If you when you first see it, like people for the first time, like it's. I've been around a couple of times where people were looking through it like, oh my god, it's just such a shock. And he had to go back in. He added in the line about oh, you did all this cocaine, your baby was dead anyway. That was sort of to soften the blow because the pushback was so strong. But he had. The deal was, I can do whatever I want. So I don't know. I wasn't involved in that. I knew Jay at that time. We actually got one of the reasons we got to be good friends was I brought him down to my comic shop when the book launched, and I'd ordered I don't know. It was it wasn't like I had this giant metropolitan. I mean, I was in a college town, Auburn, Alabama, and we'd cultivated a good group. But I think we sold like 150 to 200 copies. We were the number one selling store of the book. Just because who was going to order that many copies of it, but we did it for the store signing. But Jay was blown away that we had that many people come in and buy his book and get it signed and all that kind of stuff. But even then he was telling me the story, and when I read it, I was like, I can't believe you got away with it. And that's what he was telling me. He's like, man, I didn't think I was going to go away either. People were threatening to quit, and Mike was Richardson was on the phone trying to talk me to change the page. And I was like, once you ask Jason to do something like that, he's going to twice as hard. No way.
Now we're here to talk about Pearson, but I'm hoping there are many more streams with 12 gauge because the ride. We all know the page 11 with the ride, Kevin. There are 12 gauge. This is why it's one of my favorite publishers. I never know where the stories are going to go. They're entertaining, and they go to places where I'm like, you guys literally put this to pen and paper. Like, holy shit.
Yeah. We've had some crazy stuff over the years, and it's all because it's mostly these guys that I've worked with. I tell them, hey, go have fun, do what you can't do anywhere else, and that meant a lot more back in the early to mid 2000s too. Like there was it was harder to get your stuff out. You could go to Image, but it wasn't like it was just anybody do whatever they want. So we've had a lot of fun over the years, and I've gotten a lot of heartburn too. So
I was about to say, because the other crazy thing with body bags, like it doesn't seem as crazy now compared to the Boys, other series like that. But it's like this came before a lot of this.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you know, Scott's seen those pages that we're hoping to put in. You know, once you know, we budgeted this out for a 200-page book, and you know, there's a ton more, right? But we have an extra 40, 50 page of material just, you know, from the stuff that hasn't been published, the 33 pages, and then there's also the 3Bs, which are the online short stories he did in 2015 leading up to his Kickstarter or in and around his Kickstarter. And he did those, you know, were hand drawn. So, but I lost my train of thought there for a second, but that Body Bags 2 story, if you see I think one or two of the pages that we've got up on the Kickstarter site, and I don't know if I sent those to you guys, but they're definitely up on the Kickstarter page. But you see this page is kind of drawn like John Byrne, and it's these old superheroes. They're like the superheroes in this Body Bags universe that you didn't really know existed, right? Because he didn't do that story. But he's, you know, I read that 6-issue story when I found all the scripts, and they're all handwritten scripts. But man, he was doing the boys in that story. Like, he was so far ahead of time, because, you know, it's got this like Justice League, you know, Avenger style superhero team, and they're corrupt as hell. Like, they're all like, there's just all these dirty stories, and all this unfolds over this 6-issue story that he wrote. And I read it, I was like, oh my God, like this is the boys, you know. It was he was doing it, you know, pretty wild. Like, you know, to see that, you know, that he was that kind of far ahead of the curve. I mean, it was inspired by the Watchmen, you know, I'm sure, but which was the boys was, but this was like a much more extreme, you know, kind of version.
I was going to say, no, we do have it because it's the penciled page. I remember seeing that, and I thought it was like, oh, they're including like a superhero version. Like, I didn't realize it was part of Body Bags, because it doesn't feel like.
Yeah.
That man was a chameleon with style. Because
he wanted Terry Austin to ink those pages, so he really, you know, did the John Byrne thing for the opening. It was like the opening scene of the story, and it's unfortunate, but those pages do still exist, though, so that's the cool part. Man, like this page, God.
And the problem is, like, to go along with what Scott was saying, I love seeing, like, especially I know Dexter Vines. If you follow his Instagram, he's been inking a lot of other Pearson stuff. It's fun to see other inkers work on him, but there is something magic about seeing just Pearson being Pearson.
Although Dexter is the right kind of artist for Jason.
Oh, yeah.
He definitely has that great brush line.
Yeah, and he was like there, you know, we had talked, like, there's a handful of things that were just not, like, some of his Marvel work that that he had just never gotten around to filling in the blacks, you know. So Dex, you know, is doing some of that stuff, you know, to those pages. The Body Bag stuff's all, you know, it's not getting touched. So, but yeah, he was one of the, you know, Carl Story, Dexter Vines. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, he didn't have a lot of guys that he trusted to ink in.
I was gonna say, Dexter's the reason why I'm here today, because I met Dexter in Tokyo along with Sanford Green. Green gave me a review. He's like, "Your figures are terrible. Go talk to a man named Stelfreeze." I was like, "Okay." I had no idea they did comics. I thought it was just like a bunch of graphic designers doing life drawing. I end up walking into Coley's office. He just did the Blue Beetle design. So, of course, he's got all the merch, you know, showing it off. I'm just standing there, and Coley comes up behind me. He's like, "What the hell are you doing in here?" I'm like, "So you're a fan of the Blue Beetle?" And he's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "So you're not a fan." He then calls everyone in. God bless her. Steen finally leans in and goes, "He's the guy who made this." I'm like, "Oh."
A very weird, awkward, tense situation there.
That is my brand. Oh,
For sure.
especially the other fun thing with because let me see if I can get this right. Max Mexican, Panda's, like, isn't she half Mexican, half white?
You know,
Panda's
I think
Panda.
they were, I think that I think that she was Latino. I think I don't remember him telling me that the mom was supposed to be white, but I could
I
be
could be
wrong.
misremembering that. But anyway,
It's just that I don't think I ever asked.
yeah. I was gonna say though, the fact that he also nailed, like, you could tell like he spent time studying the human anatomy, where it's like you could get different backgrounds. So it's like I said, he was such an he's an artist.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, he was doing research, and that was part of the thing that with this was, hey, let's do things like everybody's like white superhero thing, and so he wanted to bring a flavor and street level kind of a vibe to it, which he did. His thing was like it's supposed to be in the future, like, but it's 15 seconds into the future, and but we're in a spot like he wrote a treatment once for well, this was years ago, but he wrote a treatment for a film director or a producer, and he did an opening scene where Panda arrives in Terminus, and she gets into this cab, and he says, like, this was touch screens were just, I guess, coming around, but he's like, there's everything's touch screen in the cab, like where you punch where you want to go, and like he was doing kind of like what we use for navigation. But he's like, but the LED screens are cracked, and so he like everything, even though the technology's there, it's still crap. This is a shitty place. I don't know if I can say that. This is a bad area that you're in, and he was very mindful of that's what Terminus was. It was beat up, it was neglected, and lawlessness reigned.
Well, yeah, because what's crazy is, and you get this from reading Body Bags, it's like often it's like they're calling Mac and Panda, the cops are calling Mac and Panda in to do their job, and it's like these are two individuals who should be like, you should not trust them with anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it was old. Sure. It was in a lot of ways a Western, right? I mean, there was, the law wasn't, it was sort of its own brand of law.
Sure. If I may now move alongside to the next part of this, gentlemen, I believe these are the Artist Plus pages that you shared with me. If they can somehow load. Oh, this is the wrong one. Okay, there you go. 1 second. All right, there we go. So these are preliminary sketches from characters inside Body Bags.
Yeah, so that's Pops from 1994. So it was, probably a year or so before, 6 months before he started actually, drawing the book. Mm-hmm. It came out in 96. So he was drawing it, and this was late 94. So he was working on it in 95. So getting all this stuff figured out. Handful of them were in color, and then a lot of them, were just, pen and ink.
I even love how he added a lot of the detail between, like, just the person in general, what they're wearing, how detailed the bags are that they're wearing, and the caps, everything of this. So I love seeing sketch pages too. Just in the case of, you're an artist, you're trying to think of not only how is your character going to look in the book, how consistently do I have to like draw this part? Is it just this one costume they're wearing? Like, what's going on in their head? And so seeing this is pretty cool.
Because I know, like, he talked about with Pops, making like the little beady eyes and the big like cartoonish eyebrows was like a nod to Tintin, like, and more European artists. God, and I can tell you this much: no one, like, okay, maybe I can think of two other artists, but like the average person is not thinking of the soles of the character's shoes.
Yeah.
Because the problem, I know what that comes from. That is Gaijin to a T. Because one of them would learn something, and then the others would be like, well, I got to outdo the other guys. Because I don't know why Brian Stelfreeze knows the equations to the Glock serial numbers. So all of his guns have fake Glock serial numbers on them.
This is why the pages don't come out quickly.
No, but they're worth it.
They are.
Yeah, and so what we're looking at here is some of those character designs. Before I forget, the book, and we haven't done the pagination on it. It's probably we're not going to get a lot of the stuff in there, but we've got those 3B stories that he did. They're all colored, lettered, everything. So we have those that will go in this book because that was one of the things he'd promised to the backers of this original campaign in 2015. So we're going to include those. So there'll be a mixture of colored sequential stuff and then also all this concept work. And so we've got these character designs. There's a ton of that. We could fill a book up probably with character design work. I mean, because he's got it in from a couple of the different volumes. A lot of these character designs we have, were characters from the unpublished story. And then we've got the character designs for the Don't Die Until I Kill You characters, which he did it. He wasn't drawing in this style, so it's kind of strange. He did it in a completely different style. Now, these are like digital, but and then we've also got like he did some of those layouts we want to show because they're just so detailed. People need to see them. There's color comps, like what he would do with this, get the markers out, and he would send all that stuff to the colorist at Digital Chameleon. Like here's your models, and they were just gorgeous pieces. So what we're going to do with this too is like, and this one thing that Scott and I've got to kind of nail down the next day or two is our stretch goals. The main stretch goal is to get those extra pages, in the book. But then, like this Artist Edition Plus book, we'll want to do a stretch goal where we'll add some extra pages, like in the digital version. There will be digital versions of this and the locked and loaded sketchbook, so we can put some extra material that that we just can't print. But anyway, these like that character design, like he was going in a more this is for the 1999 story, and he was definitely moving in a cartoonier direction. I don't know. I never really asked him. I don't know if it was a Bruce Timm influence or Disney or what. He kind of moved into that kind of a style that he was using for that series. But what a great, just those faces, it's amazing.
Because in that one, there's like no spot blacks either. Like he did almost like a modified Deadline, and then like had the colors filled them in. So it feels a lot lighter. Like it's weird because Father's Day has a very weight to it because of all the spot blacks. Then the next series feels a little lighter. It's still body bags, like it's bloody and crazy, but it's interesting. That's the other thing I'm excited about this artist edition. You get to see the progression and different thoughts of like the different projects.
Yep.
Also, I can't speak for everyone, but not only am I co-host, I actually was one of those backers on the 2015 Kickstarter. I have to say, especially of late, I'm not going to name names, but like a lot of companies, I feel like they've kind of been misusing Kickstarter. I have not been more impressed, and I know Keven personally, but I'm speaking as a fan. Scott and Kevin's just transparency on this project, like trying to do right by the fans of the 2015. I have no problem putting my personal money into this project, and I really hope this resonates where it's like I'm excited for both of these companies moving forward. As a fan, I know I'm only going to get top tier, and I really hope enough people recognize that so we can get more projects from these two companies.
Well, thank you. I mean, it was very important to me that there was some kind of an effort to get people who backed the original project, get them something for their unfulfilled backing of that Kickstarter. It was just very important to me and also to Keven.
And like I said, you didn't have to do that, but it speaks a lot that you guys stepped up and did.
Yeah, that was the first thing that Scott said. He's like, we need to do this and figure out a way to help, the people that backed his campaign. And, like, absolutely, I definitely want to do this book, and I definitely want to, you don't want Jason's legacy. And, we kind of named it, there's a tier for that, but that was the both thing we both mentioned was, he was such an amazingly talented artist and creator, and you don't want his legacy to be that he stiffed some people, some money. That's, the people that felt like he just abandoned, you know, his, you know, the book. He never really did. I mean, even I talked to him, the last time I spoke to him was the eve of Thanksgiving, right before he died, you know, a week or so later, a week or two later. And we talked about body bags that night. He said, you know, I've figured out a key thing, and, you know, I'm still working on it. I swear to God, I'm going to get it going. And he'd sent an email with a handful of pages in it, you know, a few years, literally a couple of years earlier, where he was saying that now that I've got this part figured out, I think it's finally going to be easier to draw. And I never understood. I don't know what caused it, but you know, just he was such a talented guy. He certainly had he earned his reputation. You know, he was an ass, you know, online a few times. That was just you know, if you know the guy, that was not who he really was. That was him lashing out for whatever reason, you know, different things. But here we can do something. We can showcase, you know, how great of an artist he was. You know, the story that meant so much to him, and, you know, everybody that backed at some level, whatever, you know, whether it's digital offerings or the sketchbook or what, you know, we're working with everybody to try to put something in their hands, or at least in their inbox, you know, that they can, it'll be special. Like in this artist edition plus, this sketchbook, these aren't going to be books that are going to be reprinted, right? This is a one-time only thing. So, you know, hopefully, you know, I think most people are happy about it. And I know that Scott and I are, you know, that was a big thing for us, was to, you know, try to help soothe some of those bad feelings. And I'm, you know, some people may say you're out here on a PR campaign. I mean, maybe I am, but it's the truth. Like, I'm not saying anything that I don't believe is true. I mean, I know he wanted to do more body bags. He just couldn't do it. And you know, I wish I could have fixed that, you know, but, you know, it is what it is. But we do have, at least we got this cool stuff to look at, right? I mean, that's a character from the 1999 story, Spooky. And he was bringing her back. We have some of those pages that will be in the Artist Edition Plus. Just a handful that were completed, but she makes an appearance. And
Is she the one doing the braids?
No, that was Kat.
Oh, interesting.
Kat she was in the 3B stories. If you saw the one where she was drunk and Panda was trying to kill her, because she was one of Mac's sources, and he was I actually was texting with one of Jay's friends. I sent him he helped me pick the cover out. I'm like, hey, here's what the 2 images I'm down to, and he went with one with Kat. He's like, man, he was so proud of Kat. We need to put her on the cover, you know. So that's her. She was braiding Panda's hair. But man, they hated each other when they first met in that scene that we got. And there's a little bit of Jason and Kat too. Like we were talking about that. Like he puts himself in these characters, like his different, you know, parts of himself. And he put them out on the page, and maybe that's ultimately why he had so much trouble doing them. I don't know.
I can say too, when you're writing, penciling, inking, lettering, coloring, health issues, that's a lot. Like, that is usually a team on a DC or Marvel book. Doing that all by yourself is like, that is a lot of work. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this is what kind of I will say this: by doing the stream, you guys got more money out of me, because I'm definitely doing the Artist Plus.
Yeah, that's why I came, just to get your money.
I know you did, Kevin. Like, you're like, everyone else, yeah, that's nice, but Josh's money.
It just smells better.
Oh man, I mean, like I said, who spends the time to figure out bags?
Yeah.
I love the Skull edition here too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure. Like, I think you can see Havana in a really faded pencil.
Yeah.
He was planning on doing a story. One of the storylines was going to be set in Mexico. When he went back, his sister and his family are there. He never told me the names, but like they're killers, and you know, he came from a long line of killers, and but the sister of Max, she was into, you know, witchcraft and voodoo or whatever. So I don't know if this is her. Kind of think it might be. And there's another pinup that's on the Kickstarter page. I just loved it, and it was but that was one of the early drawings of his family. And she's sitting on top of the car. I think it's the same character.
I was gonna say, scroll up a bit down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was joking around. He called it, he's like, it was just going to be Mac going down to Mexico, and it was going to take place, I think, I think it was maybe after Vicious, but I don't know. He had changed all that stuff around 100 times, but Mac was going to be, either thought dead or faking his death or whatever, and he was going to end up back in Mexico to mess with his
Mm-hmm.
he needed something from his sister, and he was calling it Maxico, Mackixo. But I don't know if he was actually going to call it that, but that may be the name of the chapter. But he was going to go down and explore all these characters.
What's also crazy because he understands like the culture and like iconography enough to then play around and make these wonderful character designs.
Yeah, that's
also, oh my god, I kind of want to slap Pearson because I cannot imagine drawing book after book after book and doing all the stupid little circles on the hat. Like, no one needs to draw that much.
That's what made him Jason.
That's what made him. That's what made Pearson Gaijin. Sheesh.
So yes, that is what we do have for the preliminary character sketches. And you guys also mentioned before our show today that this would also include some commission work that Jason's done.
Yeah, this is the Locked and Loaded book, which is
the Locked. Yep.
Yeah, Locked and Loaded, and it was about the time he moved. He left here, moved back to Atlanta, and he was in a studio there called Studio Revolver with Dexter and some of those guys in Atlanta. And when he got ready he was going to work on more body bag stuff initially, he really started leaning into the private commissions because he was like, he had a long list of people that wanted work from him. And man, he, way overdid what most people would do. Like, that's a commission. Like, that's insane. I don't know what he got paid for it, but it wasn't enough.
It's cool too to see some of people, recognizing, hey, like you did Legion of Superheroes, which might not be a bigger commodity of a DC title, but to have people go, hey, like we want to see some of your sketches on these because you're working with Keith Giffen is a pretty remarkable thing to see. We also got a chat from American Discord. Compliment to Scott. Great job on getting this together. I went heavy on my backing earlier. Excited to see your future artist editions. Please try to do Excalibur era Alan Davis.
That's on the list. I spoke to Alan a couple of years ago, and he's in for it. So as long as the artist is involved, I'm all for it.
This is the wonderful and terrible thing about Scott, because I feel like, hey, I want X amount of book. Scott will be like, oh yeah, that's in the pipeline.
Yeah. Where do they all go?
Get out of here.
Yeah. There's a George Perez one Scarlet Witch commission.
With Copex too. Like, I cannot believe he had a light fade with the skull and the shoes. Like, that's not Photoshop. That's 100% by hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's 100% a pain in the ass to do.
Yep. Yeah, and he did a handful of these. He broke down online, like on his Facebook page, where he went into the design and what all he did. So I don't know if we'll have space. That might be the kind of thing we can include in the digital version. We can add some of this extra stuff where was explaining his process, and he was really humming, man. At this phase, he was just killing these commissions. And he was enjoying them. Like, I mean, you can see, like he was taking the ones he wanted to do. And, the people that were getting them were, really lucky.
Well, I think that's a difference too between like letting an artist run loose and then like the problem sometimes working for, any big corporations, you got certain rules, like certain things you can't do, or we were expecting this kind of image. Whereas like commission or, their personal projects, It's like, have at it, Haas. And you'll get stuff where it's like, yeah, you'll never get this in a cover, but man, I mean, like even this, each snowdrop is a different, or snowflake is a different design.
Just
Of
like all
guns, of
snowflakes are.
course.
Just like all snowflakes are. Just yeah.
They're all weapons.
Love the perspective on this too. It's something I took art school over for a summer just to get down as an elective, and man, I still don't understand how like people can get like all those angles right, and to be able to do it for like not just even one panel or one cover, but like every single part of your book. It's pretty satisfying to see.
Oh,
There you go. There's two icons right there.
this is how you get Omar's money.
Omar will definitely back it up. Just because of that. Jeremy is art. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Look forward to supporting everybody's future projects. Thank you for hanging out with us. We
Thanks,
really
Jeremy.
do appreciate it.
Jeremy.
I haven't seen you in forever.
So that Cap and Logan.
Okay, so we got Panda. I don't recognize the other two characters. Or is that
This
Panda? No.
this is a video game, I think.
Nasi, Sooks, and Addy. Dead or alive. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with these characters.
Yeah, I'm honestly somebody will be able to tell us. But
If you guys are in the chat, or if you're watching a rerun of this after, we'd love to know. Please help us out.
definitely going to put it in the
order. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is one like when I first looked at it, I didn't realize immediately who it was, and I was like,
Wait.
oh,
Yeah.
just so crazy.
Especially like that's a very like macabre, like a darker version of Poison Ivy. Like I've never seen that. And I'm kind of upset that we've never gotten a version like that.
I think this is our last one.
So I do have a question for Scott. With the process, is it the kind of thing like, do you have an idea of what you're going to do design-wise for a book before you get the pages, or is it the kind of thing you scan all the pages and then kind of figure out afterwards?
No, I work with several different designers who are very talented. I'm very hands-on in the design process. I like to pick, for instance, the end papers. Those are very important to me. And then the placement, if there are any double page spreads, things like that. Which art is used in certain ways. Sometimes it's pretty obvious, like, there are going to be images that will be all over the place on this book. The panda splash page, the intro, that'll be used at some point in the design. I might use a small horizontal panel for one of the end papers, because those are always kind of exciting to do a large image of something sort of small, but still, blowing it up and really making it sing.
Because one thing I'm excited about this book, man, like every artist edition you've done has such a unique voice, and that really complements the artist and the project. So the fact to see you play around with like Pearsons and body bags, oh man.
The designer on this book is a guy I've worked with for a long time. He's a good friend of mine. His name is Shaban Kruscescu. He's worked for years in book design, but he's also worked in animation. He was one of the designers on Futurama, and he also worked on Matt Groening's Disenchantment series as well. Great designer, great guy.
We got a comment from Luis Caranya. I think is how you say the last name. This would be an amazing book. His art is insane. And here is a further introduction to the link of the Kickstarter, 12 gauge, and all of the information that you guys need. Not only do you have the pitch there, you have a couple of the previews. And we scrolled over, some of these today. And again, I want to thank Scott and Keven for sending us these so we can give you guys a blow up for all of this as well. The artist edition plus information there, as well as a soft cover book that Keven was gracious enough to talk about earlier, as well as the additional sketchbook of the shots that we were able to see today, along with some of the commissions that were sent over. I don't think we got this one in, but it's definitely rowdy for sure.
Really rowdy.
Yeah, so Domino and Emma is there, and as well as all of the pledges, including the $1 one, which is good.
Yeah, that's
details.
for the backers of the folks that backed the 2015 campaign. One of the big headaches was trying to figure out how to, like, you can't give a coupon, and Kickstarter doesn't have a system of like credits. So if you are a backer, if you're listening to this and you haven't heard this, because they also allowed me to have access to that campaign page, the Don't Die campaign page. But so if you back that book, you want to back this one, pledge $1, and that makes you an official backer of our campaign. There's a lot of reasons why we can't fulfill anything. Obviously the book doesn't exist, but whatever, like that's not our campaign. This is. So back our campaign for $1. And if you spent $20 with Jason's other campaign, if you spent $150, we'll give you that full credit. So if you did $150, you get a free book, and you just need to back us for $1. There's the instructions are all on the campaign page, but then we've got an email address set up, email, and then we'll go confirm who your amount, and then come back and say, hey, look, you had $75 that you spent on that last campaign, so it's $75. And then they're letting us use the pledge without a reward tab, which is usually just for people that are donating, like, hey, I want to give you $5 just because I want to support you. But they're they're giving us a one-time exemption to use that to collect the money, the differences between the credit, and what is owed. So, really, I can't thank Kickstarter enough. Not only were they excited to help, they've just been over backwards to make this as painless as possible for everybody. Unfortunate things. Sometimes people don't fulfill Kickstarter campaigns, for various reasons. And here's one that we can at least help out a little bit to help those guys out. And one little thing for international backers, because this has come up a lot, it's insanely expensive to ship a book this size that's over, like with packaging of like 12 pounds. It's not cheap. And we went to a freight forwarding system where got feedback from a handful of backers, also with some other publishers. The freight forwarding system allows us to ship. You can pick from any, like we've got a lot of links to different ones. You can go and enter in the numbers and where you live, and it will tell you, like, here's the 3 options to get the book to you. None of them are going to be cheap because it's a really heavy book, but it is cheaper than if we did it on our own through a traditional fulfillment company. So what we'll do, it's a $17 flat fee to ship the artist edition book. You can throw a bunch of add-ons in there, and it's still going to be like $17. We'll ship it to your freight forwarder in the United States for that $17, and then they will ship it to you. So it's, like I said, it's not going to be cheap because it's just of the weight and the size. We don't have the books in another country to ship, from different parts of the world or whatever. We're not doing the kind of volume to make that possible. But anyway, it is to try to help, and you should save a little bit of money, and then you have complete control, of how your book is handled and how it gets to you, whether it's, air freight or slow process to save you some money. But we have all those details too. It's a lot. There's a lot of info on this campaign page, way more than usual. But this is a unique situation, so that's what's going on there. And really, so far, all the feedback has been really positive for the most part. A couple of people, you can't make everybody happy, but we're trying our best. So you know, and this is a manual situation too. So, and I put it in the comments or whatever, but you know, I'm Scott's doing the book production, right? And he's doing all the scanning and everything. I'm going to be handling the spreadsheets and, you know, checking all the backer stuff off and keeping up with your pledge, you know, for the backers of that 2015 campaign. So it's going to take me a minute, you know, to get through this initial burst of backers. But you know, I will be getting back to everybody and getting all that squared away. And that's why that's one of the main reasons we're doing this. We're also doing it to help Jason's mom. You know, she had a, you know, when he passed away, a lot of legal fees and, you know, rent. We had to pay, you know, she had to pay rent for 6 months on an apartment that, you know, that we couldn't even access. So either that or they were going to throw the stuff out in the street. Literally, that's where we were at. And had they known what was in there, they would probably have, you know, thrown everything out in the street so that they could have taken it and sold it. But anyway, so yeah, so that's, you know, Scott and I aren't doing this to get rich. We're doing this because we want to, you know, help the backers, help Jason's legacy, help his mom, you know, and so there's a lot of labor of love going on here.
I was about to say, as a fan, yeah, this is a labor of love from these companies. I'm very excited. How much we've gushed over Jason's art. That is Keven with spreadsheets and business side. Like, I cannot think of a better person handling this. Design, book design, Scott's team. Like, I'm excited for Act 4 because I have a high bar with what I'm expecting. So this is an all-star team. And especially if you're on the fence, like I get 150 is a lot, but you've never read Body Bags, $18 for the whole digital set is a steal. Like, this is some of the best, and I will die on this hill. This is some of the best comics, period.
It's good stuff. I agree. I'm not going to argue with that.
But we do really appreciate not only your time, but also the fact that you were able to share us all of these details with the fans here near mint condition, and also both of your works just in comics in general. I mean, you've been here, you know, been in the industry for so long. And like I said, like I look up to the both of you as far as like how to push these out in not only a fashionable format, but something where you get to see the process and get to respect the creators' work on these, which is, I think, very much needed and sometimes even pushed off aside. Because a lot of the stuff that they put in on the page. So we'd like to thank you two for, well, not only be here, but also being transparent and being very generous with all of this.
And, you know, I'd like to, I would like to say one thing, and that is Keven really has gone the extra mile in getting everything settled with Kickstarter. So they're actually opening it up so he can see who backed the original project and all the, you know, I mean, he's the hero of this project. You know, he's the guy who really did all the legwork and made it happen. And, you know, I'm helping out, but he's the hero on this.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but this absolutely in no way happens without Scott. I mean, that was one of those things. Like when that call came in, like when there was like initial email and then the call, and that was the first time I felt relief since Jay, you know, and there's a whole lot of stuff that was going on, right? I mean, you're trying to deal with the shock of your friend passing away, and then, you know, his mom needs help, and, you know, she's in the other side of the country. I was, you know, it was all that was going on. And this was a little like, you know, and I didn't know if we'd ever get the pages, you know, I felt like we would, but you don't really know when you're not allowed to go in the apartment, you know, and
right.
You know, but this was like, oh, you know, at least like this happening was something to look forward to. And, you know, it's been a ton, you know, I know Scott's scanned and, you know, you got to size and fix the, you know, straighten all that. It's a lot of work. And, you know, but it's been a pleasure to, you know, to work on it. When I got up this morning really early, like I set my alarm at like a little before 6 Central Time, so I could kick the campaign off at 7. And I was just sitting there, like, you know, watching the pledges like start. I didn't think I was like, surely they're not gonna be many, but I'd read like start at 7 Eastern, and it was just like boom, 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 boom. Like my phone had the notifications for the Kickstarter app, and it was just like one after the other. And I was like, okay, such a relief and such a great feeling to see that people do want this. So hopefully, you know, we'll have enough that will get us over the top. And I mean, I feel like we will. And you know, yeah, I certainly can't thank Scott enough for you know, calling and saying I'd like to do this. And I think you know, the fans will be, you know, it is a hefty price. I get it. I mean, I get it every time I buy an artist edition, right? And they're like, God dang. But you know, it's what you're getting. You're like, you know, it's a high end product. And for everybody that's asked, because I've gotten a lot of messages today, yes, this is going to look like the artist editions you already own. It's going to be the same quality, same printer, you know, same format. You know, same guy that, you know, that made the artist editions happen, and he's doing this one. So you will be very happy.
No, for sure.
But, and, you know, thanks so much for having us, sending thoughts, prayers, love out to Omar, you know, at a very, you know, just sad, you know, you know, we all understand that.
Omar is truly one of the nicest guys, and, you know, it's a horrible tragedy. So, anyway, all our love to him. Okay. Well,
yeah.
All right, guys.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Josh, real quick before we end this interview out?
I was about to say, because Near Mint Condition, I think, is one of the best parts of comics. So all the love to Omar and Melanie. Also, I hope you're not watching this. Take your time. Don't worry. Things are fine. Take care of your family. 2, I am really hoping this is the beginning of a lot of books between 12 Gauge and Act 4, because the ride. I need page 11 in an artist edition is all I'm saying.
Well, you know, there are definitely plans to you know, and as we're moving, you know, this direct to consumer, it allows projects that, you know, might have a little harder time getting published just for the you know, the printing bill. It's, you know, like, these are insane printing bills, you know, to do books this size, or you know, other hardcovers that, you know, the ride. I mean, it's a lot of pages, and but yeah, so hopefully, you know, this will just lead to other opportunities to get some cool stuff, our back catalog out there.
Completely agree. And you can also check out these folks' pages. Obviously, if you're watching this channel, you probably know who Scott is, but here is a link to Act 4 Publishing. Thank you, James, for sending that in the chat, as well as Kevin's here with his publisher at 12 Gauge Comics, 12gagecomics.com. But that will be it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. And if you spent the time with us, we really, really appreciate you not only checking this out, but promoting helping these guys promote their Kickstarter. They always rock. I know that for sure. But yeah, until next time, I'm Dom of X. Please stay fresh, mentees. Stay safe and have a great day wherever you are.
Thanks, everybody.
Stay minty.
Stay minty.